The Athene Real Talk Podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk Podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World-famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
Everybody has a core drive they're connected the most to. And the reason why they have that core drive, the reason why they have that core value is because they grew up and they came to learn that that is what's most valuable to them. And that goes through social conditioning, to experience, to everything. If you understand that, what it is for yourself, a lot of your actions start making sense. If you only care about happiness, for example, because on a subconscious level that's what you want, or freedom, or whatever concept, then your actions will emerge from that. Your actions don't emerge from your rational view on things. Your actions emerge from what you value the most in life. And the reason why you value that the most, because you think this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what makes me more happy. This is what I'm designed to do. What I'm telling you here is, if you replace this with making sense, then what you are going to want to do, what you're going to value the most, automatically, on a fundamental level, is making sense instead. So when you go out, what drives your actions is not like trying to be with your family or trying to make money, or no, it's making sense. And as a result, what happens is the following: you experience a lot of fucking dissonance. Because that's why it sounds so unattractive. It's like, but man, like, my life doesn't make sense. I don't want to have that as a core value. The moment I adopt it as a core value, like, my entire life falls apart. Because my life doesn't make any fucking sense. But I'm telling you, like, no, that's not how it is. Your life makes perfectly sense. Everything makes sense. The only difference is that you don't understand it. And when you make sense as your core value, and you experience all this dissonance of what doesn't make any sense, and you know, like, wait, this dissonance doesn't come because my life doesn't make sense, or my actions doesn't make sense, or my dysfunctional beliefs don't make sense, but because I don't understand where they come from. And as a result, your drive, your core value that drives you, will try to make you understand all these flaws you have. And as you tackle them one by one, using logic, you're making sense as a core value, you grow and expand as a person and become more happy, more successful, better friends, everything that what you could desire. So if you want to achieve anything you desire, you have to make making sense your core desire. That's what I'm saying. Make making sense your core desire, and everything will get sorted out. That's what I'm telling you guys. And you don't have to experience this dissonance. The dissonance you experience are emotions that you experience even before you're aware of them. You don't have to beat yourself up over the dissonance you experience, because that dissonance is because you don't understand it. So what you're going to do is that dissonance, instead of inspiring frustration and more dysfunctional ideas, it will inspire you to learn about your fucking brain. It will inspire you to start getting your life together. It will inspire you to do anything. What exactly do you mean by making sense? You know exactly what I mean with making sense. Making sense is solving your cognitive dissonance you experience using your common sense, your logic. Everybody has the ability to make sense. It is your prefrontal cortex that does it. We as humans have acquired the ability to make sense, and that is why we're here. If it wasn't for that ability, we wouldn't even exist. Making sense is why our computers work. Making sense is why we have all science, why we have cell phones, why we have houses. It's based on the mathematical patterns that bring about reality. And aligning your beliefs with these mathematical patterns is what making sense is. And even your dysfunctional cognitive beliefs are part of these mathematical patterns. And it's when you understand them that you understand where the flaws are, and you can either accept it and discard it, or you can take action to fix it. Do you either make sense or don't make sense, or is it a range? We all make sense all the time. There is no such a thing as not making sense. It doesn't exist. You might say, like that doesn't make sense. It's because you don't understand it. Making sense means understanding the mathematical patterns that bring about certain actions in your environment. Back in the days, lightning didn't make any sense. But with technology and our understanding, it started making sense. Same with your dysfunctional beliefs and thoughts. They might really make no sense. Even killing might make no sense. But if you understand the patterns, it suddenly starts making sense. And you can do something about it. You can fix it. Because you understand that the emotions that causes the dissonance comes from the conflict of your beliefs. The dissonance people experience, the fear people experience, is because their brain, on a fundamental level, wants to make sense. And you might say, like, but you said everything does make sense. Like, it's just nature's ability to try and align you with reality. And by doing so, we managed to evolve so much. But it's only very recently that we started adapting things like culture or intellectual insights. Very recently. And it's only now that we started understanding how the brain works. So having making sense as a core value didn't work back in the days, because if you do it, you'd experience too much dissonance because there would be too many holes, too many unknowns. And that's why things like God or religion had so much easier gravitas, because God explained how things that was unexplainable happened. But as we found more answers and more answers, it was more and more and more and more convenient to use making sense as your core fundamental value. And the moment you start realizing that, you're like, oh fuck, if I adopt making sense as a core value, then everything can fall into its place, because I start, I use the knowledge to understand why I feel the way I feel. If you have social anxiety, there is a reason for it. And finding out the reason is for a big part the solution, because you can make peace. You can make peace with reality. The brain has the ability to do that, to adopt. You just have to figure out, where do these emotions come? And everybody talking right now in the chat, a lot of your actions is subconsciously, if not all of them. And making sense allows you to much more accurately figure out where these emotions come from. While now you experience an emotion and then afterwards you start throwing shit at it until it sticks. But if you understand how making sense is a core value, you go after it in a much more consistent structural way, where you use your knowledge about neuroscience in the brain to sort it out.
Oscar says, but the thing is saying making sense can take like 10 years for some.
Yeah, but the thing is though, the reason why I like making sense is because it makes me allowed to connect all concepts I've used throughout Real Talk to it. There's actually other stuff that I wanted to say about making sense, because I know yesterday someone was asking, can you give examples of what benefits with making sense has? Another benefit that making sense has, that had on me, is my need to talk to other people went completely away. Because I realized people don't listen. So why talk when they don't listen? So I stopped talking to people. Another thing is caring what people think of you. I mean, you don't care about them as much as they don't care about you. It's just in your head, so it doesn't make sense to care. These are really, like, for me, since making sense was a core value, I got rid of these things just like that. It's really very, easy to reframe these things. Matt John says making sense is mostly subjective. If it's your core value, of course it is subjective, because everything is subjective. It makes actually sense that making sense is subjective. But the good thing is that you have a common ground of rules that are falsifiable through reality. And that's the beauty of it. Of course, depending on the knowledge, it will fluctuate. But if you then share knowledge, you come to an agreement, and actions are aligned. Lichtim says, Athene, how do you work 16 hours a day without losing too much focus on getting really bored? The thing is, I just do what I'm passionate about. Like, if your goal in life, right? If your absolute goal in life is to get laid, and you're getting laid all the time, right? You'd be like, damn son, I'm really living the good life. Now, let's say your goal is not getting laid. Let's say your goal is making a lot of money, and you're making all the money in the world. You'd be like, okay, I'm making all the money in the world. Like, let's say your goal is to travel, and you travel all the time. You can go like, okay, that's satisfying. But let's say now your goal is making sense, like really making sense. That's your core value, to make sense, right? Well, then while you're making sense all day, why would you feel bored? I'm doing it all the time. Just like a program that you are running anyway. When you go around and you find going on vacation important, or if you go around and you find getting laid or whatever important, do you really think that is yours? Do you think you are born and you are made to go on a holiday? It's all social conditioned. It's all programmed in who you are. And the real freedom that all those people love to, embrace and stuff is in the choice to choose what is really important and what really matters.
And making sense matters way more than anything else. So how would I be bored? I do every single moment what makes sense. I'm very satisfied. And the funny thing is, it's different than money, because you might think like making money is what I want to do. Then you make money and then you go like, but I have all the money in the world, but I'm still not happy. Well, that's the problem, because you didn't define your core value properly. When your core value is making sense, you can't go rock bottom. It's impossible. You can only grow. And it's indestructible as well. It's such a strong foundation. All my self-confidence, all my achievements, all my insights, all my actions, all come from that core value. And that's it. There's nothing else. I have nothing else. I only have making sense. The thing is, with right action mindset, like Nolan was experiencing quite some dissonance with contacting streamers. But he didn't used to experience dissonance. And I was really aware of it. He had a talk with Reese about it. Like basically it started after the day where the internet wasn't working. And then he was like, okay, I'll just take a day off. And then after that, he started experiencing a lot of dissonance. Everything was more a drag. And then like Reese talked to him and they were trying to find the cause, because that's always what you try to do. You experience an emotion, try to find the cause. And actually the cause was that he put himself in the vacation mindset. And then, since then, every time when he was doing right action, he felt like he had to get vacation again. And the thing is, like when you have a right action mindset, there is no such a thing as vacation mindset. You just keep doing right action. And even if you end up doing something else, it's still because of it's the right thing to do. And that really helps him a lot. And I wonder if that is something would help you guys, people that are doing the right action, that at one point they say, oh, I can treat myself, right? And then they put themselves in the treat mode mindset. And then whenever they go back to the right action mindset, they are basically experiencing it so much more as a drag, because they want to go back to the treat mode mindset. And it's almost like a subconscious process. While if you are not anymore in the treat mode or vacation mode, then you don't experience that dissonance at all. And that is something that I wonder, maybe that is why people are also procrastinating. It's because you're just in the mindset where you allow you to do so. But if you go like, fuck it, I just do what I have to do, then maybe it's a shortcut to be very productive and be very fulfilled. Yeah, but there's a moment that says like, what happened to unwinding though? Doesn't it make far more efficient to take breaks? Yes, but then you frame the breaks in your right action. The problem is if you put yourself in another mindset and basically your core value of right action, you feel like you can let it slip away because it's justified. And then everything else becomes a bigger drag. And therefore you feel like, oh, it's even more justified to take more time. And you can get into a spiral. While if you never go into a zone of where you go like, hey, I can just treat myself, then you never have the urge to do so. You can't experience the dissonance. But it's just a concept, it's a word. If you turn it into an unwinding mindset, you might fall into a web. That's why it's important to frame it properly. Yamon says, yeah, I have that. It's literally like a switch. But the thing is, Yamon, you always have to stay in right action mode. Vacation mode shouldn't exist. There is no existential need for vacation mode. It's a social conditioned, flawed concept. You take a break because the break itself is right action. You rest, it's called resting. It seemed that it did a lot for Noam. For me, like when I hear these things, it's hard for me to identify with it because my core value is making sense. And then it's like, why would I want to take vacation? It doesn't make sense to me. Just do what is right. And that's all. Like when I'm tired, I rest because that's what makes sense. And it's that simple. But if your core mindset is right action, it can happen. That's why making sense is so much more powerful. Category says, I think when you said yesterday I shouldn't generalize, isn't this required to function amongst humans? You yourself have to generalize all the time when looking at applications like age and stuff. Well, it depends, huh? Like you always have to make a rational approach. Basically, when I talk about generalization, like your primitive need to simplify things is very different than looking at statistics and trying to, from a scientific perspective, be more effective at it. So if it comes from the more scientific approach, then it's fine to generalize, to put it that way. But that's not in any shape or form the same concept as generalizing from a primitive angle. So yeah, if it's rational, then sure. But then it's already becoming hard because you're using the same word for two different things. And that's the thing with language. It's very easy to grab a concept and connect it to a different emotion while you mean something else. So like this is, just being more effective or efficient. It's different than just generalizing because of primitive drive. I actually, like, honestly, I read this part here. So basically you say like, yeah, you value it above everything else, deep down above family, etc. So if your family member was to die tomorrow, then if making sense was truly your core value, then you would be able to handle the death instantly and would not be emotionally affected, because making sense would allow you to override and value you had for your family. It's very important to know that it's not because making sense is your core value that you suddenly become machine-like. Although making sense as your core value allows you much easier to be able to mourn like the death of someone close, but it will still affect you, but a lot less. And you can wonder, like, let's say your mother dies, right? Do you think that your mother would like you to be sad and really your world fall apart? Or would you think your mother would rather like you to be able to process it faster and move on with your life because she cares about you? And these kind of insights can really very easily relieve the weight on your shoulders, because if you really care about your mother, and that is, you know, why you would want to feel justified to feel bad or whatever, then it is actually paradoxical, because your mother would like you to be able to go through it more quicker than slower. And that is something you have to be aware of. And that's where, you know, like, if I would lose a family member or whatever, I would have an easy time to process it because I have a very structured foundation, but not because I am cold or I am emotionless, but rather because I'm very structured. Is there any point in feeling sad over a family member's death? No, because there is more important stuff to do. Well, the thing is, like I said, making sense as a core value doesn't make you immune, but it does allow you to process these losses more easily, which is a good thing. I mean, you can't say like that's a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing that you can more easily process these things. It doesn't turn you into some kind of Terminator or something. And since makes sense is a core value here, it is valued more than family. So your first instinct will be to look at what makes sense and see if it's more effective to ignore it and continue your purpose to progress humanity forward. Damn straight. What you say there is damn straight. Some rationalizations you will come up with, but I can be sad so I can deal with the loss and be more productive in the long run. No, you won't be sad, upset, or even care about the loss, because making sense overrides it all. Like, making sense allows you to contextualize it and allows you to process it much better. Even if you really care about your family, that's what your family would want. Since it's the core value, you look at it first, you won't even be able to remember. I just wanted to make this post so people can realize when something is a core value or something you high value rationally. Slowly over time it will internalize, but this is likely to take years to become your number one core value. Yeah, but that is really, really, like, what you say there is quite, you know, it's quite on point, even though it's not that simple. It does help quite a bit though. Uther says, Athene, don't you feel guilty because you are destroying your crew's future? They will not build a family, they will never retire. First of all, I think these are good questions, because that means people are starting to understand the scope of it. Like, if you value family more, then that's what you do. You're gonna always wonder whether it makes sense or not. If you think retiring is what you value a lot, then that's what you gotta do, but you gotta wonder whether it makes sense or not. If you can contribute to society in a very big way, and you see other families, you value them as much as your own, and you can save literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of families grief to bury their own children as one person, isn't it more of a, you know, of a positive thing for all these families? Like, if like their future in your world would have to be sacrificed for the benefit of millions and millions of other families, and I'm not even talking about sacrifice, because they feel more happy, more fulfilled than probably you. You can think about it. There's so many other families. Why is their families more valuable than another one's family? Why? You should more say like, hey, Athene, don't you feel happy that what you're doing with the crew is making it so that millions and millions and millions of families will be able to exist and flourish and will be able to have a better future? And that at the same time when people here are fully happy. Athene, but if it's a core value, you are an emotionless robot, because making sense is all mathematical and running off maths is robotic. And if you look at making sense first because it's your core value, then you are not utilizing emotions. I will never make sense. It's not that simple. But if that would be the case, that would be good. Like, emotions, you don't need them. You only need them to course correct your actions. Like, let me tell you this, I will never make sense. And I don't even know why you call yourself I will never make sense. But hey, your emotions also make sense. The reason why you have emotions is because nature has programmed you that way, because it allowed you to survive and to prosper. But now with our rational development,
we've been able to think more rational and more structured. And that's why the past 100 years have been such an exponential growth. So even your emotions that you're talking about are still a part of making sense. So when you make sense, you can literally look at the reason why you have these emotions and do it more functional. So it's not like emotionless robot. You can call it whatever you want to discard it, but when you look at it for what it is, it's just a more accurate paradigm that will make you fulfill your emotions a lot more than without it. So you can frame it the way you want, but this is really very dangerous, you know, because it puts you into denial. You have to just look at it for what it is, and being able to look at it for what it is allows you to not be over dramatic about it. The Squig says, I know it's a stupid question, but if every single mindset makes sense, then why should I change mine? Well, the thing is, like, it's not because it makes sense. Like, basically, the reason why you should change yours is because whenever you experience dissonance, making sense of it allows you to understand it and overcome it. There you go. Because it's more in line with reality, less in conflict. Everything is rational, everything is your highest impact. Well, it depends how you look at it. If you look at it from a deterministic point of view, you could argue that every single action is just an action, and it is, and that's how simple it is. But using awareness, you can course correct and grow as a person and be more effective and efficient. But yeah, if you just look at things for what they are, then things are, and that's it. But it's more productive and more practical to look at it from a perspective where you can grow and understand the dissonance, so you can be more in line with reality. I think, can one's core value change? If so, how? Yes, of course they change all the time, depending whether you experience a lot of dissonance or not, you know, or get into some crazy insight. Everything is of course correcting if your core value is making sense, and every action thereafter is the highest impact. That is also like it's not so much about whether your actions have the highest impact. It's not about the outcome. It's about improving your mindset to reduce the inner conflict you experience by understanding it and overcoming it. And that's a process that takes time. That's justice, but why should I correct something that's not my fault? It's not about correcting something that is not your fault. It's about being more compatible with reality. And there is no such a thing as anybody's fault. Things just are. And looking at the world for what it is allows you to, you know, be much more effective. It's not about pointing fingers saying this is my fault or your fault or whatever fault. It's just about the results of your actions. I will never make sense says, Athene, I know my values don't make sense, but it's too scary to drop them. I feel like I can either fall in a hole or slowly progress. It's more comforting to stay in my matrix bubble. It's cozy in here. Man, there's actually a guy that came over here that said exactly the same thing as you did. So like, Athene, I'm afraid that if I drop it, I'm going to fall into a black hole. I'm really afraid. And I said, like, you're afraid that if you start making sense and tackle your dissonance using your knowledge and your rationality, that you will fall in a black hole. That's quite crazy, you know. That's really a reason to really start wondering and questioning, like, damn shit, son. But the thing is, you do understand though. If you have the ability to make sense of your core value, I'm telling you, man, the knowledge is out there. You can read the book. Explains a lot of shit, a lot of existential questions gets answered. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you, maybe at start it might be a little bit bumpy road, but you're gonna feel so much more fulfilled.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow the real Athene on Snapchat.